Okay, welcome to my UK Global Talent Visa Inspirational webinar. Today's the 31st of March and it's a critical day because of the Tech Nation announcement, but I will go through that in a second. But thank you so much for joining me today. The agenda for today is just a little bit about myself, the Tech Nation announcement, what is the Global Talent Visa. I'll go through the stage 1 endorsement application and process. We do have Obinna, who is here today, and I will interview Obinna first, and then I'll open the floor so that you can ask your questions to Obinna either in the chat or the Q&A. We've just tested to see if that works. So without further ado, my name is Michelle Hewer. I've met some of you, but if the ones that I haven't met, I am Vietnamese, Australian, and now a British citizen. I'm a global talent visa coach, and how I became a coach was in 2016. I became a recipient of the global talent visa, and I got the exceptional talent endorsement. And shortly after that, I was the Tech Nation visa ambassador. The reason was because back then there weren't many people who knew about the visa or applied. So I was one of the top 50 that got it, and then, shared my story for the next 2 years. I'm no longer an ambassador, but obviously I'm a coach now, so I help everyone with the stage 1 endorsement. The great thing about the UK Global Talent Visa is that it's a route to settlement. So in 2019, just before COVID, I received my indefinite leave to remain, and then I've got my British citizenship. So it is definitely, I am proof that it is the route to settlement, and I've got my British citizenship. I've got blogs on those two as well, so I can share that for you about my journey about how to become, how to get the indefinite leave to remain and citizenship. I spent 7 years in the UK, based myself in Manchester and Newcastle, and travelled quite a bit down to London for my startup, which was called Made with Glove. It was a wearable tech startup. I am a former Australian solicitor before I became a tech entrepreneur. And how I started this whole journey was after I was endorsed and got my visa, I wrote a blog about my experience, and that blog went viral. And over the years, I've done this since 2016-17. I've helped over 1,000 tech entrepreneurs, senior execs, and tech employees. My success rate is 90%, while the endorsement rate is 54%. And some of my clients have received a result within 3 to 27 hours. I mean, that doesn't happen all the time, but when it did happen, it was such a great experience for my clients. I help people from all over the world working in so many different countries and companies. So WhatsApp, Sony, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the big tech companies, but I also help startups, CTOs, graduates, UX designers, marketers, business and technical people. The list goes on. What I love about my job is that even though the titles are very similar, everyone's story is unique. And this is what is really important when you do your application, because you have to tell your story and really reiterate the journey that you've been on and your successes and achievements. Just a quick disclaimer, this is only on the stage 1 endorsement. I'm not affiliated with the Home Office or Tech Nation, and I'm not an immigration solicitor. I only deal with stage 1, which is the endorsement stage. Stage 2 is the Home Office visa application stage. When I did my startup, or when I was working on my startup, I was featured in a lot of publications, and I really did immerse myself in the tech community. So much so that was used as evidence for my application. So if you're looking at, your leadership criteria or proof of recognition criteria, these are the types of things that the assessors are looking for. They want you not only to work in your job, you get paid to do that, but how are you contributing to your own tech sector as well? So this is my blog on my website. I can share that in the link in my newsletter that will be sent, and this is the blog that went viral. I didn't realize how successful it would be, but it's just about sharing my journey and my story. So I'm really glad that I did, because it led me to doing what I do today. So these are some of my successful clients over the years. Not everyone wants to share their story, which is a shame, but the ones that do, I really do appreciate it. And it's on YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel, and, as you can see, I love seeing such diverse faces, people from Egypt, India, Nigeria, Pakistan, America. Yeah, so the list goes on, and it is really nice to see such success in the tech sector, women and men. So I know you want to know about the Tech Nation announcement. They said that they would cease their operations today, which is 31st of March. So what that meant was that they lost their bid for funding, £12 million funding to Barclays for a majority of their programs. However, the visa program was still funded by the government to them, but because it was only a small part of their operations, they felt that it wasn't viable to continue with only a few programs left out of the 12 million funding. So they decided to cease their operations today, but everyone was wondering what's going to happen with the Tech Nation visa. So they said that the Tech Nation Global Talent Visa remains open, okay, to everyone, and you can continue as normal. Okay, and they said that the Global Talent Visa will continue to offer the digital tech pathway, and more information about the new endorsing body will be made available shortly. Only a few days ago, they did announce that they are, after looking at expressions of interest from lots of different organisations, they've entered into discussions with Founders Forum Group. Okay, they are a global community and group of businesses supporting entrepreneurs at every stage of their journey. So they sound a little bit like Tech Nation. Tech Nation supports founders through programs and give access to investors and have reports and have lots of events happening. Founders Forum Group is very similar. They have been running since 2005. So they started in 2005. They've always been part of the tech ecosystem in the UK. So they're not brand new. They have been running for quite some time. So Tech Nation have said that assuming that both parties agree, the Founders Forum Group will seek to continue Tech Nation's legacy and plans to adopt the internationally renowned brand lineup into its existing portfolio of events. So maybe they're looking at keeping the brand, the Tech Nation brand, and continuing some of its programs, including probably the Tech Nation visa. And they're continuing at the moment, while they're discussing that, they're continuing to talk with the Home Office about the future of the global talent. But in the meantime, they will continue to accept, they will continue to assess applications, and then will let us know exactly who the endorsing body will be, which is probably Founders Forum. But that is the latest news that only happened. This was only released 2 days ago. So hopefully you're a bit more reassured. It looks like they are in discussions and things are happening in the background. Okay. And this is about the Founders Forum Group. I just wanted to show you their website so you can see that, they're about connecting founders with some of their programs. They advise founders through these programs, and they've got investors ready there, and they've got like a social enterprise type group here as well. So they are a big group, and they've been around for a while. So don't worry too much. It's not going to some new group. It looks like it's a very credible and really will help the tech ecosystem thrive and continue to thrive. So that's it there. So what is the Global Talent Visa? Hopefully you will know about it, but if you don't, it used to be called the Exceptional Talent Visa, which is what I got, but it was just a rebrand. It's a special visa that was introduced to allow highly skilled tech entrepreneurs and talent in the field of digital tech the ability to apply for the right to live and work in the UK for up to 5 years. There's a 2-stage process, and you have to be endorsed by an endorsing body, Tech Nation, by meeting the strict criteria that they have set before they can apply for the visa. So you have to be endorsed first before you can apply for the visa. It is more than a job application, and I'll show you the criteria and guidelines. It's a little bit more than that because, if you're endorsed with exceptional talent or exceptional promise, you've got to do over and above what you do for your work in your everyday job, okay? The great benefits is it gives you the freedom and flexibility to live and work in the UK for up to 5 years. You can apply for indefinite leave to remain and British citizenship. You can also switch from your skilled worker tier 2 visa, and the time spent in the UK counts as well. So, when I was helping a lot of employees from those big tech companies that were being made redundant, they were on a skilled 2 visa, and they were really worried about their security and residence in the UK. So a lot of them wanted to switch over to the global talent and then get indefinite leave to remain or apply for it quickly. You can bring your dependents with you on this visa. You can register a UK limited company, which is really important, especially for students on a student visa. They're very restricted. And then again, if you work for a tech company on a skilled worker visa, you have to have sponsorship, whereas the global talent, you can, work anywhere you want to. It was also great for me. I had an entrepreneur's visa, and then I switched to the global talent, and the entrepreneur's visa was very restrictive for me. So when I switched to global talent, I was still working on my startup, but I was able to take a break from that startup, and I worked for an accelerator, and then I worked for a university, and then I came back to my startup. So it was very flexible. It's attached to you, so you don't have to worry about, asking a company to sponsor you or anything. It stays with you, and it's very cost effective in terms of the fees that you pay for stage 1 endorsement. Stage 2 visa fee includes a health surcharge, which is a bit more expensive, but that's for your health. And once you've got the endorsement, you can apply for the visa and pay for that. Just a few stats here. You've got loads of people from different countries applying, mainly USA, India, Nigeria, Canada, and Russia. There's a 54% endorsement rate. So 1 in 2 applications are successful or unsuccessful, depending on which way you look at it. And there's over 3,000 successful recipients. The number isn't a lot, especially since it started in 2014. But the reason is because when I applied, and this was only changed in the last sort of 2 years, is that they had a cap. Back then when I applied, they had only 200 endorsements were made available per year. But in the last 2 years, they remove that cap. So if you are applying, you can be endorsed provided you meet the criteria. There's no limit. So now it's unlimited endorsements. You can apply for talent or promise. There's 68-32. These are just stats. 75-25 men versus women applying and getting endorsed. It's because more men are in tech than women. And then once you are endorsed, you can join the alumni. And I'm part of the alumni as well. So there's a network in there that once people are endorsed, they can join the alumni, and we've got lots of events and access to other global talent visa recipients. So over the years, applications have increased. Endorsement rate is still pretty much the same. So here I applied in 2016, so it's back here. But then as you can see, more people knew about it, more people were talking about it, more people were applying. What's very interesting, I've been very busy in the last 2 months, is that since the announcement, so many people applied because they were scared that, this route was no longer going to be available. But I knew that it would always be, because tech is such a big sector in the UK economy overall. So there was no way they were going to get rid of the visa, and don't think they will, because I'll tell you why in a sec. But as you can see, there was a massive surge in applications. There still is. They're still coming through quickly, but they're still being viewed and assessed as normal. I think they're actually being assessed a lot quicker as well. So if you're applying and you've got it in, they're still looking at it, and they will be. Just some stats here in the Visa Report 2020. I've asked for more stats, but they've not given it to me yet. But these are just from 3 years ago. Very, very similar though. These are the countries, applicants from countries that have applied, and this is the endorsement rate. So even though overall endorsement rate is 54%, but they've noticed that, different applicants from different countries have a different endorsement rate, and these are just the stats. I do help a lot of people in this bit here, but, it's not to say I do help people down here as well. So it really depends. And then because this is a tech visa, a lot of people think that you need to have a tech skill. Yes, so software engineers, definitely, they're being endorsed. But as you can see, there's lots of business type skills as well. People are applying and getting endorsed. So biz dev, there's marketing as well. So there's a bit experience in investing. So, there are non-tech roles, operations and marketing as well. So you don't have to have a tech skill. You can have a business skill as well. And I help a lot of people with business skills. So there's 2 stages, as you can see. I won't go through this in too much detail, but as you can see, the first stage is the endorsement stage, and these are the different endorsing bodies, right? These are science, that's arts, this is tech. So if they got rid of this one, there would be no endorsing body, no pathway for tech. So they have to have a tech visa for the global talent visa. So this is why I feel like it wouldn't really go away. You can see there's 4,000 endorsements in this period of time. But what's more interesting, over here, once you are endorsed, you go through the stage 2 visa application stage. But have a look at these stats. Tech Nation, 22% is the digital tech route. It's the highest out of all of them. Arts Council is 21%, so just above. So why would they get rid of this if the stats are saying that a lot of people under the global talent visa are going forward for the digital tech route? So I hope I've eased your concerns a little bit just showing these stats. And this is a really good overarching stats to show you how the digital tech visa compares to the others. So in order to apply, you need to be eligible, and what they want people to work at are companies that are product-led. The UK Global Talent Visa in digital tech is really about those working for companies that have a proprietary digital technical service product platform or hardware as their primary revenue source. They don't really want consultancies or people working in agencies. They want people to be working for companies that build products. Okay, so if you're technical, you build the product. If you're business, you are responsible for selling, marketing those digital tech products that the company has built. So you can work for or be a founder of a digital tech company that develops its own products for its customers by license or subscription or by selling, but they don't want any consultants or outsourcers. So what does the application look like? 15 documents, okay? It's about 3 pages each, so it's all in, it's about 45 pages for your pieces of evidence, but your whole application pack would be about 70 to 90 pages. You need to provide your CV, personal statement, and 3 letters of recommendations by experts, and there's criteria for those experts. And then everyone needs to also look at the 10 documents that you need to provide that make up the mandatory and optional criteria. Okay, so there's 5 criteria, and you choose 3. 1 is mandatory, so you choose 2 out of 4 optional criteria. Eligibility, as I said, you can be a technical or business person to apply and look at this list. It's not exhaustive, but just pick ones that's closest to you. A lot of my clients actually have both. And again, it depends on the story that you're telling. So if they have a technical skill as background and then they've moved on to business, we kind of tell that story and produce evidence to show that they're not just, business focused or tech focused or the other way around. We try to tell the story through the evidence as much as possible to show that you are really well-rounded and that you have the skills that's necessary for the global talent visa. They don't want people who work mainly in consultancy or outsourcing, as I said, agencies or junior investors. Okay, you can also be an employee and you can be a founder. What's interesting is the stats show that 75% of applicants are employees and 25% are founders. So there's 2 categories: exceptional talent or exceptional promise. Those who apply, those who have more than 5 years experience should go for talent, and those with less than 5 years experience should go for promise. Now, if you have about 8 years experience, you can't be cheeky and apply for promise because the assessor will see that and they will assess you under talent. So just be mindful that be very realistic about, which one you should apply for, because they can always use their discretion and assess you under talent, which isn't great. So just pick the one that's closest, and usually the 5-year mark should tell you. So you should be a leader in your field here, and this is you are a potential to be a leader. The difference is that if you get talent, you've got 3 years before you can apply for your indefinite leave to remain, which is what I did. But if you are endorsed with promise, you have to wait for 5 years before you can apply for indefinite leave to remain. So once you apply for, choose whether or not you're talent or promise, you then select your criteria. So there's mandatory, which is a leadership criteria. So you need to show 10 documents that show all these criteria. I usually like to pick 3 examples per criteria to take it up to 9 documents. And in the 10th document, you would just choose a criteria that you've already selected to make up your 10th document. So leadership is a mandatory. Everyone needs to show leadership. And then under optional criteria, there's 4 options and you choose 2. You can show your innovation. You can show volunteer work that advances the tech sector. So this is work outside of your day-to-day job that you get paid for. This is your impact to the field, either the company, industry, or customers. And this is your academic contribution. So if you worked with a university and you help them further along in their research, you can choose this one. I chose this one, and I chose this one. And I also chose this one. But when I applied, all the criteria was all over the place, but they're very similar, but they were in different spots. So again, the process, stage 1, you apply online at the Home Office. First of all, you pay, you register there, and then you've got 15 working days to then submit your documents to the Technation portal. And then that's where the assessors will look at your 70 to 90 pages, and they have they have up to 8 weeks to give you a response. The average has been 3 to 4 weeks, but I've seen responses within 1 to 2 weeks since the announcement. So it really depends, but they do have up to 8 weeks. So they tell you whether or not you're successful or unsuccessful. If you are unsuccessful, you can appeal the decision. Only if you feel that the assessor made a mistake in the decision. You've got 28 calendar days to appeal. And then if you are successful, if another assessor looks at it and agrees that they made a mistake, then you are successful. You go to stage 2 and you apply for your visa. If after the appeal, they say that you're unsuccessful again, you will have 2 pieces of feedback to decide whether or not you should resubmit or go to another visa route. So it really depends on what the evidence is. I help a lot of people with appeals and help them decide whether or not they should appeal or don't waste their time and just go and resubmit using the feedback that they've got. Okay, and these are the fees that you pay. 456 is the first set. Once you are endorsed, you pay 152. Biometrics, immigration health surcharge is the expensive one. When I applied, it was £200 per year. Now it's £640 per year. If you're on a 5-year visa, that's 640 times 5. That's like 3,000 for the health surcharge. But that's only if you have a 5-year visa. Because if you have a 3-year visa, obviously it's 3 times 640. So it depends. So these are the common questions I get asked by applicants, potential applicants. Are they eligible? How do they present their documents? What is relevant information? Who are the experts? How do they show the innovation's impact and that, that you're an exceptional leader? How much experience do they need? And appeal if they receive an unsuccessful result. Eligibility is one thing, and I assess people on their eligibility, but proving that you meet the criteria is a whole nother story. And I know that Obinna will talk about that because it's about structuring your evidence. It's about telling your story in the way that Technation wants to see it. Okay. So this is my website. I do have a questionnaire here to start you off to see whether or not you're eligible. And I delve a little bit further sometimes to see if you could potentially make the criteria as well. So please do, if you haven't already, fill out my questionnaire and I'll get back to you. Please fill it in as detailed as possible because that gives me as much information to then invite you for a free discovery call and have a chat to you. And my top tips. I have been endorsed. I'm a recipient. I'm also a coach. So my top tips are kind of amalgamation of both. This is your chance to tell your unique story. Okay, we keep telling about this storytelling. The reason is because someone, a human, not a robot, is reading 70 to 90 pages of your career in the last 5 to 7 years. Make it interesting and make it unique because it's about you. Your tech network is very important because you have to rely on people to write letters to support you. This process is also about self-promotion. If you don't promote yourself, the assessor cannot assume you are who you say you are, or they can't go looking for you. Every piece of evidence needs to show that you are worthy, you are a valued member of the tech sector, you have great achievements and accolades, and you need to show this and convince them that you deserve to be in the UK and that they need you in the UK. Check for any changes to guidelines before submission as well. There's a change log in the website. Please do check that before because sometimes there could be changes and they don't tell you. And also contact me sooner rather than later if you need support because I am busy and also you know your story, but to tell someone else your story and to have them read everything and you know, they can't turn things around in 2 days. I've had people ask me, can you just check this and come back to me tomorrow? No, because, you know, my job is to make sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and that takes time. And I need to learn about you and your achievements and accolades. And also I can check your application before you submit, or before you even start, we can have a strategy session. And that's really important, because before you embark on any project, there needs to be a plan. There needs to be a strategy so that we can go through a process of elimination and pick the right evidence. So I hope that helps. I know I've rushed through this, but I want to get to our interview. I've got the YouTube channel, as I discussed. I've got my website. You can email me as well if you've got any questions, and I can certainly get back to you. So without further ado, I have Obinna here, who is, hello Obinna, who's agreed to come on and share his story. It's very inspiring, motivating, and, you know, very encouraging as well. I met Obinna last year and worked really hard with Obinna and to success, which is really exciting. So welcome, Obinna.
Hi, glad to be here.
Hi, yay. You were one of the audience members of my webinar, and now how does it feel to actually be my VIP?
Yeah, it's a dream come true. I think I remember that was Jade Shola's webinar, or inspirational webinar with you.
Wow.
And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, I mean, she's from Nigeria. I could relate with her story. And if she could do it, then yeah, it was definitely possible. So
Yeah.
I took that leap of faith, and it turned out.
Great. Okay, so let's introduce yourself to everyone who's here. We've got loads of people here wanting to learn about you so that they can see, am I like Obinna? Go on.
Okay, so my name is Obinna Osuji. I'm a co-founder, CEO of a health tech startup, originally based in Nigeria, Medismarts. So we kind of focus a lot on, you know, automating the processes in healthcare, and especially the applications of AI in healthcare. We've been in business for a little over 5 years, and we've had I would say relatively good success in Nigeria, and you know, we are looking to take over the world.
Oh, that's fantastic. And this is the first start of it, you know, getting the global talent visa to allow you to expand and become more global in your business. So why did you decide to apply for the global talent visa?
Yes, so I mean, if you did a random search on Google in terms of the top tech hubs in the world, you definitely find that the UK is in the list of the top 3. And any serious-minded tech entrepreneur at some point will, you know, want to get into this markets where they are cutting-edge technology, where they're, you know, the advances in technology kind of start from first. And, you know, try to be a part of it. So that was my primary motivation. The UK obviously has a long history and track record of tech innovations, and a lot of, you know, startups from the UK have gone on to become unicorns, you know, and so that's the dream really for most entrepreneurs out there in tech. You want to build and take your idea or your vision as far as it can possibly go.
Absolutely. And the UK was there for you. And it's great because it's got the same time difference other than, you know, with the daylight saving, but very similar. You know, it's easy. Travel time.
Travel time is easy. Yeah.
It's not much. And there is a Nigerian community in the UK. There's loads. I didn't realize, like, so it's I guess no brainer. It's easy. It's the next step, I would say.
Yes, and the thing is, you know, being here in the UK, no one really knows I'm not even in Nigeria. It's amazing because the time zone is the same, so I don't have to be at a certain time of the day while others are sleeping. So it's been just the right fit. The Global Talent Visa offered that part because you know, some of the other routes for entrepreneurs, I would say they're good, but none of them are as flexible or offer the same level of flexibility that the
Yeah.
talent visa offers. So just like you mentioned, you don't need any sponsorship, you don't need to work for anyone. You can register your business in the
Yeah.
UK, you can bring your dependents. And for the talent option, you get 3 years instead of 5 before you apply for ILR. So, I mean, it just checked all the boxes for me.
Yeah, it was like music to my ears. It was almost like a dream when I saw this, when I was on my entrepreneur's visa, because that was so restrictive. And it was like, is this real? You kind of have to go, oh my gosh, this is perfect for me. Okay, so challenges, because when I applied back in 2014, no one applied for it, so I had so many challenges. But now I think people have the same kind of challenges, because when you read the guidelines, it's a bit scary. So what challenges and hesitations did you have before applying, and how did you overcome this? With you though, you've got 2 times. The first time when you applied, and unfortunately were unsuccessful, but then you had challenges the second time you applied, but you were successful. But yeah, talk us through those 2 times that you've had challenges and your hesitations, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so I mean, the first time around, I was very inexperienced with the whole process. I remember thinking to myself, wow, these guidelines are a lot, and I felt I didn't meet most of them. Reading through it, on the face of it, it can be overwhelming. And I think people also fall into the trap where their achievements and accomplishments don't really, are not front and center in your mind when you think about it. And many times, I think many people even downplay, at least I did, we even downplay some of our achievements and be like, oh no, that's not important enough. And so that was the first challenge I had to overcome, to, read through the guidelines and be confident that it was worth a shot. And I could only overcome that challenge by hearing the stories of other people who had been successful and seeing that, the stories and the experiences were similar. So if they could do it, so could I. And I think the next challenge that I also had to overcome was really the work, committing to the work that it takes to get this done. So it's a lot of work, and you have to tell yourself from day one that you're going to do everything that it takes if you're going to be successful. Yeah. So those are the top 2 for me.
Yeah, that's great, because when I applied, I didn't sleep for like 3 months, because I was on a deadline. My entrepreneur's visa was expiring. So I nearly was deported. So I only had 3 months to apply while running my startup, while living in the UK. And just, it's very stressful when you put time to it. And then it's your own deadlines that you were working off as well. So absolutely. So, talk us through the second time you applied, because you got feedback. Okay, what was the challenge when you got that feedback? And then I remember having a chat to you about whether or not to appeal.
Yeah. So it's interesting, because the first time I applied, I requested to have a discovery class session with you. And, you gave me a few pointers here and there. But I remember feeling really confident. I felt like, what, I've read the guidelines, I understand it, and I'll go ahead to apply. And so I did, and unfortunately, it wasn't successful. I remember thinking to myself, did I misinterpret the guidelines? I couldn't relate their feedback with what the work I had done. I felt I did a good job with the application. So it wasn't until I had the review with you to determine if I should appeal or not. And, you putting yourself in the position of the assessor and looking at my application, it became very clear that, what, don't waste your time appealing. It had so many holes that couldn't be, best if I had appealed. Maybe one more criteria, or maybe all could be rejected this time, who knows? So it was a no-brainer that it was the best path forward was to put in a fresh application.
Yeah. I mean, I know that you felt that decision was really harsh, but only because they couldn't see the evidence. You didn't present that evidence to tell them that you would fulfill the criterion. I've read harsher decisions. Yours wasn't too bad. It's just they just can't see it, and don't take it personally. It's just they couldn't see it in your evidence. And then after we decided, okay, you could resubmit, that's when at the point where you felt like you needed help because you tried the first time. And that's fine. Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, it was clear that just like you mentioned during the presentation, the assessors have a very limited amount of time and they haven't met you. Part of the process, no part of the process involves a one-on-one interview. So they're really just judging you based on your application and nothing else. Yeah. So having that session with you kind of opened up my eyes to see why I needed help. So it wasn't so much as the fact that I didn't have the right evidences, but more about the structure. How do you tell a compelling story to someone who has never met you before in 70, 80 pages tops, and have it structured in such a way that it doesn't waste their time. So it really answers the questions and helps them tick those boxes faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. So let's talk about your experts, because before this, I looked at your experts again and then went, wow, we didn't it was so different. So who were your new experts? Because you previously chose people that really didn't fit the criteria, but also people that you knew so long ago. Yeah. And we re-looked at all your experts. So who ended up being your new experts?
Yes. So for the first application, and this is one of the other mistakes that I made, not reading the fine print in the guidelines. So you look at the guidelines and you think, oh, because it says your experts should be people who have worked with you in the past and who know your work, it might be easy to miss out the condition where it says it has to be in the last 5 years. Yeah. So the mistake I made in the first application was, I think 2 out of my 3 experts were beyond the 5-year mark. Yeah. And so that didn't even count, to the assessors to start with. So in the second application this time around, we looked at my network and, narrowed down to the best 3, one of them an investor, who of course an investor is, kind of like a good person to write you a recommendation, because they obviously put money into your business. So they have, some level of confidence in your abilities and can speak or vouch for you. And the second expert was my co-founder. So of course we work day to day and we've been working together for over 5 years. And so, he also, co-founded another health tech company that went on to raise millions of dollars. So on the strength of that, he was a very good expert. And then the final person was or is my former boss and, I'd say a friend and colleague now. So he's the CEO of another health tech startup. So he was also able to shed some light about the time we worked together and some of the things that we've done in the last 2-3 years. So yeah, I mean, one of the things that you pointed out to me to help me understand was the experts have to be talents themselves. So in the eyes of the assessor, these people have to be, good enough to be considered as exceptional talents themselves. And I think that was the key there. Yeah,
absolutely. And you didn't even consider your co-founder as one. No one ever does consider their co-founders. Like, they're the best people. I mean, provided they have credibility themselves. But like you said, this one had already started their own startup, got millions in funding and that kind of stuff. So I'm glad we pulled your co-founder in to help you. That was a good move. Okay, so the criteria. There's 5 criteria. We select 3. Your first application, you selected different criteria to the one that we ended up choosing.
Yeah.
mainly because of the feedback that we received from the assessors as well. So talk us through that as well, your criteria that you select.
Yeah, so for in the first unsuccessful application, I selected innovation and so I selected innovation and then impact. So on the surface, it looked like that was a no-brainer because, you have a digital product, you try to, write about why it's innovative, but then it was rejected on the grounds that it wasn't innovative enough. And so one of the things that we then decided the second time around was that innovation can be a bit subjective in truth. So it's up to the assessor to determine whether what you've presented, is innovative enough. So we decided to instead this time around go with proof of recognition and impact. So of course, proof of recognition relies on verifiable evidence. So it's difficult for the assessor to, say you're not recognized enough if you have the evidence that says otherwise. So I think that was a key change the second time around. And even though I got impact the first time, but we kind of strengthened the position this time around on impact.
Yeah, absolutely. We were really scared of innovation, weren't we? We had it there, but we just kept going back to it. And this is part of the strategy session that I talked about earlier, is we had a plan and it was great to have that plan, but it was a moving, evolving plan as we went through, and especially, working on the documents. We were definitely going to do proof of recognition because, you had loads of interviews and you were I think you were in a lot of articles and things like that. And leadership, obviously, your leadership criteria, the evidence in leadership was really strong in the second application. Because you added more things. You had awards and speaking engagements, and you did a lot more, and you explained it better.
Exactly.
No, it's really good now that you see the difference. Looking back, what were the main difference? Well, we talked about the main differences, but what was it that you took from it, like the main difference between the first and second?
Yes, so it's the eyes of an expert, really. I think working with you, kind of the best I can compare it with is like having your own assessor working with you. And so you were looking at it not from the eyes of the applicants, but more from the standpoint of the assessor. I remember I would get into this holes where, I've written out something, but there's not enough context. So to you, to me, it looks like I'm filling the gaps in my mind, but they are not going to read my mind. So when I send it into you, you look at it and you don't really understand the story. So you say, okay, can we edit this? Can we add this? Can we take this out? And that was very helpful, because at the end of the day, if you understood it as a third party, if you could relate to it, then it means a third party elsewhere would also be able to relate to it. And I think that was the main difference. And then the second would be the structure, of course. We used a lot of the same evidence from the first time. Those were events that I had or attended as keynote speaker. Those were also publications that had happened, which I used in the first application, but they weren't considered because there wasn't enough substance around them. So you take pictures and all of that and you post it in, but you don't write about the event. You don't explain the impact of that event. How is it relevant to your space? Why did they pick you? Who among the event organizers can vouch or, give you a letter of support to say, this is why we invited this person to speak? All of that was missing the first time around. So even though we use a lot of the same evidence, going back to those people to get letters of support, to be able to write a compelling story around the importance and relevance of that event, of course, attaching the proofs of the pictures and all of that, went a long way the second time around to make it a completely different application.
Absolutely. There was a story. Each piece of evidence had a story. It's almost as if someone picks up a piece of evidence, they don't need to ask or wonder. It's all there. And that's what you did for your second application. I'm really proud of you, because I kept asking more and more. And you're like, oh my gosh. But you did it. And at the end, you produced a really, really great application. Okay, now let's talk timelines, because I think one of our attendees asked about, when they look at your application. Let's look at timelines. So the first application that you did on your own, when did you submit that, and when did you get a response?
Okay, so the first application I submitted on the 30th of June, 2022. Yeah. And I got a response about 3 weeks later on the 20th of July. And, of course, with every rejection, you get a pro forma detailing the reasons why. So, I'll be honest, that wasn't a very good day. You look at the rejection, and technician is very detailed in spelling out why you were not endorsed. Yeah. And of course, you, as a human being, you feel bad, you feel sad. And in my own case, I felt it was a bit harsh, but it was the truth. They had nothing against me, and it was on the strength of what I had submitted that, they gave that feedback. So, of course, after overcoming, the doom and gloom, it was time to objectively look at the reasons and say, okay, now I have this feedback. What's the next step?
What was your thought when you got it? Did you want to appeal? Was that your first? Because I get a lot of people saying, I want to appeal now, I want to do it. And then when they speak to me, they're like, okay, maybe not. But I don't remember your thought process in the next step.
Yes, I definitely did want to appeal, because I felt, they didn't consider this evidence. They didn't look at this. Oh, there was no mention of this, but this is what the guideline says. Yeah. Then I decided, because by that time I had seen your webinar, I had, realized that you've helped a lot of people. And so I booked the review session for, to determine if we should go ahead and appeal. And, that then led to your feedback that, there were so many holes that it was going to be near impossible to give an endorsement. And I think most people don't also understand that, yes, your application may not be 100% perfect, but if you give the accessor ammunition to shoot down, certain things, then you can expect a denial, because they are going through it with a checklist. And if you don't check one box, you get a denial. You have to check all the boxes to get an endorsement. So if you don't get innovation, maybe your application has been great up to that point, but I think it then causes them to scrutinize it a bit more. Even more, yeah. Versus if the story has been consistent from start to finish. So once those holes, were pointed out, I realized that, there was really no need to waste any time applying, waiting for 28 days. We could just, hit the reset button and try to focus on a new application instead.
Yeah, and you did. You completely just went, right, okay, there's a line. I'm crossing that line, not looking back. Let's look forward. And I think that helps, because you're not moving backwards, you're moving forward, and you're focusing all your energy on this new application. So for your second application, when did you apply for it then? So July was when, the doom and the gloom. Okay, so when did we reset? Press the reset button.
Yeah, so I remember we started working on the new application as early as August, the very next, because we figured, okay, we have good evidences. We just need to do a better job with the application. So we started almost immediately the next month, and, it ran all the way to December. So I think we spent 4 or 5 months working on the application, which may seem like a long time. Yeah. But in truth, it's the amount of work that it takes really.
Yeah.
So that was the hardest part. And once we completed in December, there was this question of, should I submit in December? But I just decided that, okay, since they were going on break,
Yeah.
it wasn't going to make a difference anyway. So I waited till January and submitted on the 9th of January, 2023. And just a week later, on the 17th, I got the email with the endorsements.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the email alert come into my phone.
Oh, gosh.
Because I had done this before, now if you wait
Yeah.
a few minutes after the first email, you usually
Ah,
get the second pro forma email. I
oh,
remember
I
holding my breath
see.
and thinking, okay, so yes, I can see Tech Home Atlas, something technician. And I just held my breath for a few minutes and no second email came in.
Ah.
And then I opened the first email and saw that I got the endorsement. That was a very good day. The tension, the build up, the uncertainty that led up to that point, it was finally worth it, because preparing for this application is stressful. We'd meet every week and I'd have to prepare all of the evidence, make some corrections ahead of our next review. And this happened week after week after week. So it's a grueling process. It's not an easy process.
I'm sorry. Did you hate me in there? Did you hate me going, Michelle's making me do this?
Oh, no. I mean, I
Oh,
was
good.
grateful for the help because I'm not a very patient, or maybe I
I
would
think you
say
are.
I like to blow through things very quickly.
Yeah.
And if I'm reading a page, I'll probably skip one or two paragraphs. I'll just, okay, what are they trying to say? What is this? Then go to so I'm that kind of person. So it's easy to miss things out.
Yeah.
And when you have a second pair of eyes who looks at it critically to say, no, there are gaps here and here and here that you need to fill, then that was, the perfect combination. For me, I think that helped us, with the second application.
Yeah. Okay, so then I was your safety net. Like, I could catch you whenever. That's what I said to you. I said, just do it. Don't worry, because I'll catch anything that you miss. And that forced you to keep going, go work as you can. And then obviously then I'll find all the gaps and tell you. No, but it was a pleasure. Just looking back, gosh, we did work for a long time, but it didn't feel like it. Like, because every week we had chats and we progressed. Sometimes we didn't because, you were busy and, the Christmas break and everything. But it flowed and it was very seamless and we hit our milestones, so it didn't drag. We just kept going. Yeah. So when you got your endorsement, you went on to apply for your stage 2 visa.
Yes.
So how long did that take? And was that a difficult process? Because I don't deal with that. You do that on your own, or you can get a solicitor to help you.
Oh, yeah. So I did all of that on my own. The good thing about the technician visa is that you're really almost 90% done when you get the endorsement. So for the stage 2 application, all you really need, is the endorsement evidence, which comes in via email.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
You pay for the visa application fee and the NHS surcharge and all of that. And that's it. You wait for your biometrics appointment, you go, you capture it, and you wait for a decision. So for me, all of that took, from the start of when I started the stage 2 application, submitted it. I think it took me about a week or so to, fill out all the forms and pay the necessary fees and all of that. And then I submitted, I think on the 8th or 9th of February. And then on the 15th of March, on the 15th of February, which was again around 8 days later or so, I got, the email that, hey, your documents are ready for pickup, and went, and then my visa was.
That's amazing. So pretty much 6 weeks was when you applied until when applied for the endorsement and then to get your visa, to the whole process.
Yeah.
It was less than the time it took to prepare the application, obviously.
Exactly. And I think, people should also not focus on that part of the story, because, there's such a thing like, they say it takes 10 years to get an overnight success. So
yeah,
all of that work that we did in
yeah,
2022 essentially was the price that needed to be paid in order to, get the results that we did. So of course, 1 week to get an endorsement, on average, they tell you 8 weeks. Most people get in 3, but I got mine in 1 week, and the stage 2 application was, really straightforward. There were no issues, no bottlenecks. So it was really good.
So at least, after that huge process, it came good in the end. Like it worked out, and that's something that you really did work hard for. The first application you did was a draft. It was a practice run.
Yeah.
And if you didn't, if you didn't do that, then you wouldn't have learned so much in the second time around. Yeah. And as you say, it is a transformative process. It's a transformative journey. You're so different to when I first met you, which is it's really nice to see.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now that you've been through the process, what advice do you have to give to others?
Yeah, okay. So first advice would be, don't minimize your achievements. When you read the guidelines for the first time, it will look overwhelming at first. You likely may not understand a lot of the things, and maybe decide that you don't meet the criteria before you even get started. My advice in that case would be, take a break, and hear from other people, learn from other people who have been through the process. You'll find that you may have all of the requirements, but you're minimizing them in your own eyes and not thinking that they are relevant enough. So that's the first advice. The second is seek help. It's easy to look at the guidelines again on the flip side and say, oh, you know what, it's written in English. I understand perfectly what they're saying. And you go ahead to do your application. Nothing wrong with that, but most times people are really shocked when they see the feedback at how critical and how much the assessors scrutinize every little detail in your application. They want to understand. So if there are gaps, if there are inconsistencies, then you've made it a lot harder for them. And so, they don't have any choice than to reject the application. So, look at the guidelines, and if you need help, seek help. Because I think, if in retrospect, because I had the discovery meeting with you, I was feeling very confident. I felt we didn't need to have the in-depth, review session. So I went ahead and did it on my own, only to come back to realize that in retrospect, perhaps if I had started that process with you, all of the issues with the first application would have been dealt with, and then maybe the endorsements would have come the first time around. So if you need help, seek help. If there are things on the guideline that are not so clear, you can reach out to people who have gotten the endorsement. Technician has a forum where that forum was very helpful. I remember reading a lot of reasons why people were rejected and making mental notes about what to do, what not to do. So learn from other people's story. And then finally, I would say, look, nothing good is going to come easy, really. There's no free lunch anywhere, like they say. And so this is a very competitive visa, just like the stats that you've shown, even though they've been operating for about 10 years, thereabouts. they've only had 3,000, a little over 3,000 endorsements. So I think that points to the fact that it's a very competitive visa. But then it comes with all of these advantages, so keep your eyes on the price and be willing to put in the work. It's going to be a lot of work to prepare what seems to be like just 15 documents, but no, to get to the point where you're confident that you've done everything you know to do, and just leave the rest, if you're a Christian like me, up to God, and hope that the accessors see things, see the story from the perspective that you've told it. Then you should be willing to put in the work. It's not something you can rush through in maybe a week or two and then head to submit. No. So
No, definitely not.
3 tips.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I think that the best advice is keep your eye on the prize. And even though you didn't get it the first time, you still wanted that prize, and you continue to go for it. I have a lot of people who don't get it the first time, but use that, if you didn't have enough evidence, use that as a goal to work towards. And I know you said you're very impatient, as most of us are. Nothing comes easy. You have to work for it. When I looked at the guidelines, luckily I had the evidence, but it didn't just come. I worked really hard for it. And then when I put my application together, I had that evidence already, whereas some people need to work towards fulfilling the criteria. So, I mean, Obinna, you had the evidence as well, but we needed to restructure. And you kept getting more evidence as we were going along. So that was really good as well. I think you really wanted to get it at that time. So what did you learn about yourself during the process?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from me is that I've done quite a lot of work over the years, and the technician application helps shine a light on all of my achievements. It's easy to have imposter syndrome where you think, oh, am I really doing what I should be doing? Am I qualified for this? Is this enough? You question yourself, but having to document, because the technician application is really a story about your life in the last, give or take 5 years. So it's really helped to shine a light on all of the work I've done so far. And it helped boost my confidence, to know that, oh, wow, okay, so I've done all of this in such a short period of time. Yes, then, I mean, if I have no doubts that I've done good work, and let's see how it pans out. So the first takeaway for me would be that boost of confidence, recognizing my work in the last few years. And then the second would be the endorsement itself. If, because of how difficult this process is, it's an accolade as far as I'm concerned when technician says you're a global talent. So I think it gives you bragging rights. You know what, the UK says I'm a global talent. I am.
Absolutely.
So that's also kind of helped validate all of my work and all of the things that I've been doing. And I guess the last would be, it has opened my eyes now to the possibilities. There's such an endless set of possibilities that access to markets like the UK can give to you. So yes, on one hand, you're contributing to the UK digital economy, but on the other hand, you're being exposed to one of the biggest markets in the world for tech. And it's easy to project from the UK to other parts of the world, from certain countries. Coming from Nigeria, which is still a developing country, it's not so easy. Based on your location, based on your address, you have certain restrictions, but getting into or having access to a place that, has the, street credibility, so to speak, allows you to tap into what the UK digital economy has to offer.
Fantastic. And as you say, first is the UK, the next is the world. You've got a springboard, an even better springboard now to go. That's really good advice. And I love everything that you've said. It just, I know I got this visa in 2016. Gosh, that seems like a long, long time ago. But it brings me back to when I got it, and to share that with you. When I got it, I was just standing there on my own, and I got the letter and I was like, great, I've got no one to share it with. So it's really nice to go through it with you, and to share it with you again, and remembering when I got it as well. So that's really nice. Thank you. So what I'm going to do is, there's some questions here. Someone's asked for the name of your company, and any web link as well. So Bright wanted to know what your company is called.
Okay, my company's name is Medismarts, and it's medismarts.com.ng for the website. So you can look it up. You can also check out my LinkedIn page. I think there's a link somewhere there as well. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And how long did you run your company before applying? Bright's asking the same question.
Okay, so my company really, I mean, even though on paper it was registered a while ago, but we really started operations in 2018. So, I mean, like, had our first paying customer in 2018. So, in retrospect, that's not such a long time. Just about 5 years now.
Yeah.
So, but I had been in tech longer because I'm an engineer, a software engineer professionally. So I had my early career as a software developer, working for a number of companies before leaving to start my own company. So overall, my experience in tech is about 11 years, thereabouts. So that kind of put me above or in the category to apply for exceptional talents, just like you mentioned. So even though the company itself was 5 years in operations, but I've had tech experience for longer.
Yeah, there was no way we could apply for Promise for you. No. As much as I think you asked me, I'm like, I don't think that's going to fly. We have to go for talent and then build up the evidence for it. I've just got some questions here. Can we transit from skilled worker to global talent as a senior service desk analyst? I'm not sure. You're going to have to complete my eligibility questionnaire so I can assess it a little bit better, if that's okay. It really has to be about developing products and showing the impact that you made to developing products and innovations as well, and leadership criteria. We have to meet all of them. Someone's asking if they're currently a QA engineer, and if they switch to DevOps, will they still be eligible to apply? As I said, sometimes eligibility, you are eligible because you meet the criteria of the skills, but the more difficult thing is trying to fulfill the criteria based off 10 documents. If you've only got 1 year experience, it's going to be really hard to make up 10 documents with 1 year experience, or with some of the experience from your QA engineering to DevOps engineers. So it really depends on the products that you've worked on, or solutions you've built, and then look at what did you do, when did you do it, and the impact. So impact doesn't happen quickly. You have to wait a while to determine its impact. So time might be an issue. I've had clients that have been with me for 2 or 3 years, and then they build up more evidence, and then we can apply. So again, if you wanted to complete my questionnaire, I can talk to you separately. Does anyone have any other questions? I hope I've answered all your questions about the applications. I know I've gone a little bit, not really. We went a little bit over with our interview, but I'm leaving the floor now for questions, and no one's asking any. I don't know. Do you have anything to add? Oh, hang on. There might be one more question. Okay. So what kinds of leadership examples can you demonstrate? Obinna, you can give us some of your examples.
Yes. So interestingly, I would say that I had some already without knowing that I had them. So for instance, when invited for events, and even if you're not invited for an event, you can actually send an email if it's an event of interest and you feel you can contribute to the conversation. By all means, have that confidence. First of all, yes, you need to know your stuff. You need to be an authority in your field to be able to come out and speak confidently. Because I had been in healthcare for the past 10 years, I think I only spent 2 years in my early days after graduating from college or university. And the other time I've spent in healthcare and health tech. So I knew everything, most of what there was to know about my, little niche. So do that first so that then you have the confidence to be able to sit in front of a panel or whatever and take questions from the audience and address issues. And also maybe as to your question about an example, give solutions to problems. Be able to chart a course to say, this is actually a good way to go that can benefit this sector. So I had examples of all of that. And don't be afraid to show your work. Be confident enough to seek out opportunities to showcase your work to the media. Some people don't like the spotlights. They don't want to be interviewed. I would say, no, don't do that. Okay. Tell yourself that, look, even if it's not for technician, but if people were to Google your name today, what would they find? And so have enough out there that tells your story, that gives credibility to who you are and what you do. And at the end of the day, yes, if you need to apply for technician, you can extract out of what you have out there in the public domain about yourself into evidences.
Absolutely, that's good advice. Someone's asked, how do you show proof of recognition for work outside of your immediate occupation? And that also goes towards the leadership criteria, because this application, again, it's not a job application, it's more than that. So they want you to not only work in your job, but also add value to the UK tech sector outside of your job. So things like mentorship, okay, but it's got to be part of a structured mentorship program. If you were interviewed by a tech publication, that's sharing your knowledge, not selling the products of your company, because that's promotional. What other things, Obinna?
Yes, participating in events, like for instance, there was one of my evidences that had to do with research work that was going to benefit, the industry. Where I'm from, there's not a lot of data regarding certain specifics in healthcare. So being part of that research work on my own time, on my own personal time, and being able to show the inputs essentially from my own end and how it impacted the study overall. I think that was useful, and we use that as an evidence. And, mentorship, like you mentioned, being able to, you could write, if you've written an article or something, maybe on Medium or some other channel, and it gets picked up by a major publication, then that's good for you as well. So share your ideas with the world. It's not, don't really keep these things hidden, let
yourself. Yeah, absolutely. If you don't share your knowledge, how are people going to know who you are and learn from you? It's interesting you talked about Medium. You can start with Medium and LinkedIn because that's your own platform. But when you want to produce evidence to show that with technician, the guidelines provide that Medium and LinkedIn aren't acceptable, but that's how I started. That's how I started writing my blogs and everything. I wrote on my LinkedIn and my own website and Medium, but then people picked it up, and then I was asked to write on their publications, and that's what technicians want. Okay, so you can't, if you want to start with the tech publications, absolutely, by all means you can, but it is harder because they're like, who are you? But if you know someone in the trade, then ask them. Use your networks. This is where your networks are really important. How do you show impact as an employee, not a founder? Well, I help a lot of employees, and a lot of people in tech and business, they are so focused on their job that they move on to the next project when they're finished with the previous project. They don't sit back and reflect on what they've done and how it's impacted the company. So if you developed a product launch is an impact, okay? Because without you, okay, look at it this way, without you, what would the product or the company look like? Okay, user downloads, if you've developed apps or whatever. If you're a business, well, if you created the strategy, what happened? What was the impact of them implementing the strategy? And impact, again, takes a while to get those metrics, quantified metrics as a result of what you did. You can provide letters of support to show impact, or if companies have won awards as a result of you working as a team and the company won an award, that's impact. So you just have to be really creative about the impact, direct or indirect, that you've made to the company as an employee. Okay. Someone is working as a learning UX for a year. Can you advise how long I need to prepare to apply for the Global Talent Visa? Again, if it's only been a year, I don't feel like it's going to be enough evidence. So I would like at least 2 to 3, just to give you enough examples of projects that you've worked on, and then time for you to make that impact. Okay. I hope I've answered all the questions. Are you allowed to study full-time? I think you can study part of it, but you do have to apply for it. There's I need to find out, but I do know that you need to meet certain criteria or get accepted for something to study, but I will find out for you, and I'll put it in my newsletter. I hope that's okay if you can wait for that. Anything else? Media companies. I've helped a lot of people who work for media tech companies. So long as there is a tech element to it, because again, this is a digital tech visa, so there has to be some kind of tech element to it. So I helped a lot of people, interestingly, who work for companies that own OTT platforms, you know, like the Netflix and things like that. So if it is a media tech company, the first thing you always have to establish is it a product-led digital technology company? And in order to satisfy that, you have to look at what other products. What are they selling? Is it a platform, service, solution, product? Or is it a service that they're selling? You have to focus on the product and then go from there, okay? Tech element like creating web apps. Yeah, well, yes-ish. I think I need to talk to you so that we can really, really tease it out. It's quite, web apps, yes, to a certain extent, but what does the company do? Does it have its own products? Is the web app something that is proprietary, and do they license it or sell it, or do they create web apps as an internal operations just to make their internal operations better, which is not really product led? It's just making your company work more efficiently. So we need to determine whether or not that is the case. Breaks in careers. I've had women who've had maternity leave breaks, and obviously that stops them from adding the years of experience. So it really, again, depends on your story, and you can explain that, you know, all in, you've only had 4 years experience, even though it's 6 years, but you had the 2-year break or whatever. So it just depends. So Varun, do you want to just talk to me later, and then we'll have a chat about that. Okay, so I think we'll leave it for now. Sorry, we've gone over, Obinna. I know you're really busy, but I just wanted to thank everyone for coming and asking really good questions. I'm going to share this in my newsletter today or tomorrow, and I'll upload this on my YouTube channel as well. But I just want everyone, if you can, if you've got an emoji, access to an emoji, if you want to help me congratulate Obinna for, you know, going through this process and being successful. And, you know, he really did try hard the first time, but he nailed it the second time. And we're just so happy for you, Obinna. Look at all these emojis. I love it. And yeah, thank you so much for the encouragement and support for Obinna. And we wish you all the best in the UK. And, you know, we're connected on LinkedIn, and I'd love to see more great things. This is just the beginning, Obinna.
Yes, yes, please. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. And I will see you all soon, hopefully, and come and talk to me. But thank you again, Obinna. I'm just going to leave it here.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.